Hello and welcome to Default Assault. I am off filming a behind-the-scenes look at some exciting theme parks, but in the meantime, I'm going to leave you guys with a trio of James Bond videos leading up to our much-awaited Rocketeer episode debuting this Monday. If you guys want to see those behind-the-scenes videos, check out the links below, but for the meantime, enjoy. Honestly, I think what happened with Dalton, the one thing that does work against him is he didn't have his one iconic film. When you talk about Connery, despite what you and I might agree is truly his best film, when you think of Connery, you think of Goldfinger. When you think of Roger Moore, you think of The Spy Who Loved Me. Brosnan, you got GoldenEye. Yeah, Craig, you got, obviously it's the most recent, but I would say, Skyfall, I think, is an iconic Bond film, especially Casino Royale, which is my favorite that he did. Yes. Even On Her Majesty's Secret Service stands as one of the most critically respected of the film, and many cite as the best film in the series. Dalton, I know you don't like it, but you can't disagree that it is well regarded.
I'm not disagreeing with the critics. Yeah. I've learned that not to do that.
Especially since I'm also a film critic, so by default, I'm always right.
Oh, that was cute.
That's the way that's the way that this show works. But Dalton never really had that iconic film.
That's true. He really didn't. And as good as the character was, the supporting cast and the villains and the stories weren't quite there. They weren't up to par. Like you said, he was the first professional actor to take on the role. And what's interesting is if you look back at the casting and stuff, if Brosnan hadn't done Remington Steele, or if Remington Steele hadn't taken off, for those of you at home, Remington Steele is Bond on TV, but really, really, really good. And I know I just got major Demos kudos, or default kudos for that.
Well, the first episode of the show was literally called License to Steal. He was married to a Bond girl. So, it was written in stone that this man was going to become James Bond.
But the cool thing is that if you look at the history of Bond between Moore and Dalton and Brosnan were always in talks to be the next Bond, but for some reason Dalton couldn't do it, and then Brosnan couldn't do it, and then Dalton could do it, and then it's really interesting because you could have had them at the same time. And even Dalton, I think, was actually supposed to come in
as early as On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Right, but he thought he was too young, so he turned it down.
Yeah, he was in his 20s.
Yeah, but I think that would have been a really interesting prospect. Forget Lazenby, forget Moore. If you had Dalton, or even having, Moore probably wouldn't have come in after that.
Well, Brosnan would have been a much more a natural successor to Moore, especially as far as their styles. With Dalton, it was way too much of a whiplash, going from the funniest Bond to arguably the most serious. And to the credit of the Bond producers, they did recognize that he was capable of taking it to a more serious point, and they unfortunately probably took it too far with License to Kill. But hey, they dared to do something different, and I can never condemn a series for trying to do that.
That's true. He kind of opened the door for a more interesting Bond, that it was ahead of the times. I don't think the studio is quite ready for the Bond that Dalton was, and I feel like that hurt him, because he could have gone on a lot longer if he had, been incentivized, and things could have worked out differently. But I feel like the Bonds we got after Dalton, like I said before, when you break up the old and the classic and the new Bond, it basically directly leads to where we are now in cinema. A lot of people want that gritty, realistic feel, especially with any of the heroes. Even the crappy Star Trek movies, those are even getting quote unquote grittier.
I think the best thing about it is that due to Daniel Craig's success, that people are starting to reevaluate Dalton and hold him in higher respect rather than him being the jokey other Bond.
Exactly. And I
In
think
conversation, I mean.
I think he was way ahead of his time for the Bond that he was.